Okay, hello, Warhammer fans. Nice to see you guys. If you're tuning into the show for the first time, consider giving us a subscribe right out of the gate here. I'm going to ask for that. I'm going to ask for the sub right away. Sight unseen, just sub. Shut up and sub. Otherwise, like the video. Either way, like the video. If you're new, if you're old, if you're
medium,
if you're about to die, whatever is happening to you, like it on your way out for us. Think about the next generation, people. Okay, Saray, how's it going?
It's going all right.
We played a game
back.
last night. We played a game last night. That was fun.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So we learned some interesting things.
We did. Yeah. So Saray and I had a game last night. No spoilers, but go ahead and watch that if you want to watch a game. There is one kind of thing I know I did wrong that affected the game.
Yeah.
Usually we don't. I kind of pride myself on not getting rules wrong in a way that benefits me. But I did that last night. So
that definitely happened.
That definitely happened. It's a thing. Anyway, we'll all move on, hopefully. Okay, so let's talk about other things, opening hello things today. We do have a list review. It's not on the agenda here today, but we will be looking at a list as well today. We have one from Saul, I think, so it should be fun. Saul is actually in chat, yeah. We're going to do yours towards the end of the show. Saul submitted a Flesh Eater Court list. Cool. So elsewhere, anything else before we get into a little bit of? We're late to this, the KO, the whole KO thing.
Yeah, we are. That's because we were saving our good takes for now.
Here's his feet.
Also, I don't know why. Yeah, there's his feet.
Yeah.
Big fan of those around here.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, I don't know why my video quality dropped. Don't know what that's about.
Yeah, you look a little fuzzy.
We'll just move. I think it's we gotta stop using laptops. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm here to say that I was right. I was right all along. They should have gone with the diving helmets. This proves that true, and that they may be switching gears.
Yeah.
If you watch our channel, you'll notice that all my KO have like bubble helmets.
Yeah.
And yeah, listen, this is even better.
How do you feel about this guy? There's some.
I mean,
he's hot and cold all over the internet. I was watching Vince Ventrella's
really?
show. He hates it.
Well, Vince is wrong. Sorry.
He's definitely wrong.
I mean, I think it doesn't. There's some things that don't fit aesthetically with established KO, right? It doesn't have a face mask like all the other ones do. Personally, I like it. I prefer the diving helmet look to the sculpted faces a lot. I think the pose is kind of weird. Like he's just kind of standing.
Well, we're getting these new no flight stand models, right? So you kind of beggars can't be choosers here in this regard. And I think we'd all prefer not to have to deal with the flight stand models, right?
Yes. In that regard, I agree. It's pretty bulky looking, though. It reminds me of Brock Grunton, the like leader of the KO. He has a similar looking jetpack thing. So this guy looks pretty hefty.
Yeah. I like this model. I like this model. I like his little gun. I like his little claw. I love the face mask. So, Saray, when you do this guy, do you think for a lot of these new ones, well, we'll ask, are you going to kind of abandon the Harkonnen thing? Like, what's your plan here?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I've been doing a think about it, and I couldn't fall asleep last night.
Thinking about KO.
Yeah, yes, probably not strictly because of that, but at some point, the thought of repainting that army like crossed my mind, and it's like, I think I could do something really cool with it, but that's a lot of work. So I don't know.
You don't have to repaint it. I mean, they look. I'm sorry. Can you not if all you did was paint this guy and put a little gloss varnish or whatever over that front window, Like, it would totally match your army. Like, of course, it's not the exact same helmet. He's got a specialized helmet. He's a
No,
specialized dude.
I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about that. I'm talking about. I'm
down here.
stepping away from the whole Harkonnen thing. I don't think it panned out because it's really hard to do.
Really? I think the
that
army looks
style of
amazing.
black. I think it looks okay. I think that the dark metal isn't actually. It should have just been black.
Oh,
is what I should have done. But whatever.
Yeah, I think it looks great. People always compliment your army whenever it's on stream. What about these guys? What do you think of these guys? By the way, I'm asking Saray. We're asking Saray. Of course, this is, if you're new to the channel, this is an army he plays on stream.
That's right.
Yeah.
I also like these.
Yeah.
I think these poses are a little better. I like seeing exposed. These are like lighter dwarves or salvagers, right? You and I had talked about adding another wing to the army.
Yeah.
This is not exactly what I pictured.
It is kind of it.
I mean, I like the variety, but like it's more balloon guys.
It is more balloon guys.
I don't think that's where I would have chosen to go initially. I think I want some more punchy melee. This could potentially be that.
These are supposed to, it says they are, right? It says they're...
Yeah.
And also, did you notice the little Bubo from the original Clash of the Titans? If you look at the guy in the middle, he has a little mechanical owl.
Oh no, that's they have those already.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen one, I don't think. Maybe I haven't noticed it before. But I love...
Yeah, it's on the Thunderers champion. Yeah.
Yeah, I love these guys.
Yeah, these are cool.
These look great.
Yeah.
We get
I like the hook hand.
We get our first lady dwarves. Lady Dwarden, right, which is cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's another army's gone woke. And these guys,
these are
probably
these
same
are
kit.
Even cooler.
Probably same
Probably
kit,
same
right?
Kit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think these look a little better. I prefer this. They look a little chunkier, a little heavier.
Yeah.
I do wonder about the loadout. You notice one has like a bigger gun, which kind of maybe changes their role a little bit, like from a pure melee to maybe more utility. There's a lot of harpoon stuff, so I'm guessing they'll have something to do with movement shenanigans.
There's a lot going on, armament-wise. This is going to be like the gun haulers. This is going to be like 4 or 5 weapon I gotta say, I think it's a little weird, Saray. In a world where we're seeing a monster that used to have 3 profiles condensed down to 2 or even 1, I think it's weird that, like, when you go to shoot the gunstruck gun haulers or whatever, we sit here and we go through like 3 or 4 profiles.
Yeah, I think you meant Thunderers.
Thunderers,
gun haulers
sorry,
Thunderers are the ones with like 3 profiles.
Yeah.
It's actually 4 because the champion has an extra shot. So it's
right.
Like, what is...
These guys look like they're going to have... Let's see. I see...
5. They have 5 different...
all right. So I see harpoon spears. I think that looks like... at least 2 of them have that. Then there's a trident. Then there's a little crossbow gun with the chick on the left side. The guy on the right has got his own like ethermatic. That looks like it's probably like an ethermatic carbine. Like some kind of ethermatic rifle. But dude, I love these guys. Look at the guy on the right in the front. That's a creepy... He's got like a creepy baby face mask on. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's a little creepy.
That's a little creepy. That's cool though.
I really like the center guy with his big beard though.
Dude,
I think that's what people... that's what people want when they think of dwarves.
Yeah, these heads are probably going to be largely interchangeable, but I do like a lot of I like the guy on the far right too. I like this chick in the front with the nose ring. Up here, some of these don't do it as much for me. I don't love the chick in the front right with her ski goggles.
Yeah. I like the Kraken beard is great, and the far right orange guy. Who's
Yeah.
like, he almost looks like a wannabe Slayer.
He
Like,
does.
He's definitely starting to lean into that.
He looks like he has like a piece of equipment that helps keep his beard in check while he's flying
It's a
around.
beard retainer.
Beard buckle. The beard buckle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, is the guy on the right? Is the guy in the middle smoking?
I hope so.
He's smoking a pipe. He's got a hash pipe. He's smoking. Nice. Yeah, I don't know. I love these. I think this was a big hit.
I like them. Yeah.
The last thing is, I'm going to go ahead and say this right now because I hate the way everybody thinks this looks like a porta potty. Once again, not what a porta potty looks like. I don't. This came up on Vince's show too, and everyone in the chat's like, another porta potty. It's like, guys, not what a porta potty looks like. You can't just say it's a porta potty because that's what you think when you see a small building that's not a porta potty. What does it look like? If anything,
We said a diving bell.
I think it's meant to kind of allude to a diving bell. And I hate that we live in a world of hobby people who are like, porta potty, not diving bell.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, we weren't far off. I think when we were predicting what terrain it would be, we went through. I said lighthouse, a buoy, or a dock, and I think this is a dock, right? Technically, I think it's a dock, even though it kind of looks like a diving bell.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the new manifestation for what do you call it that they showed off? Ideneth, with the tentacles.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
It's like one central thing.
multi-part. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this does and the multi-part model. Yeah. I like this thing. Again, this release is a hit for me. I love all the models. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm looking forward to you getting them in your hands and seeing what you do with them hobby wise, but also playing them.
The only thing I'm not super a big fan of is the smoke on the diving bell thing.
Yeah. GW is allergic to airbrushing. And this is the type of thing that you airbrush. Like smoke is definitely a thing you airbrush. They end up doing their smoke, and whenever they paint it this way, yeah, I agree. It looks like 90s. It suddenly looks like we're in like our painting techniques have transported us, back to the 90s. Like it's always with their smoke painting. This is cool.
Yeah,
it's a cool
they're
release.
They're going after the diving aesthetic.
Yeah, cool cover art here. Yeah, looking forward to this actually quite a bit. Final takes, Saray. What do you think?
Good overall. They said they're going to show more, I think.
Yeah.
So I hope we get our mech suits that we've all been pining for.
Yeah. Now we're gonna do some science here, folks at home. But a quick reminder: we are trying to get some memberships. We only got 3 out of 15 last show, and we had a lot of people in here last show. So we're trying to get our membership goal here. If you have the means, consider donating a membership or 2. A lot of you were in here last night donating away. We appreciate it. Don't double dip there. We appreciate the support already. But if you're new today and you've got the means to drop a membership or 2, it does help us grow as a channel, help us keep lights on, all that jazz. So there's my shilling for the day. I'll shill probably like one more time. Let's do some science.
Yeah, let's do it.
We skipped last week. When I wasn't here, or when you weren't here, Saray, we did skip it. So let's jump into some science here. Cue the science music. Okay.
Do. I don't remember how the music.
That's how it goes. That's it. Okay. So we are going to tackle a few models here today. First up, as you can see, is a Lariel. Saray, thoughts on a Lariel right out of the gate?
Queen shit.
You like this model?
I like it. Is that Bartok? Hi, Bartok.
It's Siri. Hey, Siri, shut up.
Oh. Yeah, I like this model. I think the Beetle's super cool. I think Alariel looks very regal. She clearly has been hitting quads, like every day. Yeah, I think it's a great model that, I think people talk about Tyranids being like good, like they're bugs.
Yeah.
This is an actual bug, and I think this is like amazing. I love the beetle.
Yeah.
So this is gonna rank high for me personally.
Yeah. I like the beetle. I'm not the biggest fan of Alario on the top.
The wings.
There's this bizarre thing. I have Teclis here, Mega's Teclis over here. There's this bizarre thing that happens with, I'm gonna say, elves. Yeah. Here's Teclis on Selenar. Yeah. It's going on with Teclis. It's going on with Alario. It's going on with the Eidolon of the Sea and of the Storm, where they're like this bizarre size. And I'm like, what if you met God Saray and he was like just an 8 foot tall man? I'm like,
I mean,
okay.
Like, are they true gods?
Right.
It's more like Hercules. It's like demigod.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very antiquity in this regard. And I've said this before. I've said that I feel like a design aesthetic of Age of Sigmar is historical design aesthetic is antiquity, as opposed to antiquity actually in Renaissance, as opposed to 40K, which tends to be more Middle Ages. Gothic and stuff. So, but yeah, this idea of like, here's our god, we drew him on our wall. You can tell it's our god because we're all this tall, and then he's like 1/3 taller. And so Alario, Teclis, quite frankly, like even the body human part of Big Marathi is the same.
Yeah.
They all kind of come in right around this scale where it's like their head is like a little bit big. Everything's a little bit bigger. And I don't know, like, I'm glad they did it and that they stuck with it and that we have this kind of interesting, like, sizing, but she's just sort of a weird size to me. Like, and then the other problem I have with this model is that is Sylvaneth an elf army or not? Kind of, right?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So, I don't... Okay, we'll come back to it, but I do love the beetle. Okay, we also have the real scourge of Gyran from last night's game, Gobsprak.
Yeah, he's very good when once a game rule is used indefinitely.
Not even once per turn.
Yeah. No, he's great. I think. There was, how do I put this? I think Cruel Boys are divisive in terms of their aesthetic.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that's crazy to say.
Okay.
But I think that Gobsprak is kind of peak what Cruel Boys should be, that and the Gnashtooth. They feel very much their own thing. And I think the pose is great. You got this weird vulture thing.
I love the corpse whip of vulture. Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel like it de-emphasizes him a little bit.
I mean, we see that a lot.
Yeah. Well, if you bring it back to Alario, it's like there's a lot of emphasis on her.
Oh, true.
And if you look at Teclis, right, there's a lot of emphasis on him as opposed to Selenar. Whereas here, it's like, oh yeah, there's a guy writing that,
right.
And that's the guy who's actually important.
Yeah, I mean, but like Talia is fairly lost in her model as well.
Yeah,
we do see that. Yeah. Okay. Last but not least for today is the humble Leviathan, and this is actually where we can. This is actually where we can start, I think.
I like it.
I
like turtles.
Too. Yeah.
I like 6-limbed turtles.
Yeah. It's actually a lot of people don't know this. You can't always see it from this angle. This turtle has like a second segment, and it's like a double shell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has almost like a little like the back two fins are on a separate segmented shell that's like off.
Oh, weird.
When you're down next, you can take a look at my model and see.
Okay.
Yeah, we know Deep Kin are on the horizon here. We thought we'd cover the Leviathan. It is a great model. It was super fun to paint. It's very easy to paint because everything is kind of separated out. The top is totally like if you're airbrushing, but even if you're not airbrushing, the top is just sort of its own thing, and you can like paint that separately, and all the guys are separate. It was very easy to paint, to be honest with you. Where's this Ghost Array?
I think it's gonna rank relatively high. For me, let's just go up the list. Sorry, also I dropped out for a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now hear you.
Sorry. Okay, yeah. I was gonna scroll up. Let's.
Okay.
Because this is gonna rank fairly high in my opinion. I think it's if you walk into a store and you don't know what AOS is, and you see one of these, well painted, it's pretty eye catching. I think it tells you. I think it really sells the difference between like AOS and old fantasy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's like a landmark model for the game.
Yeah. That being said, personally, I don't think it's like amazing. After all that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. It does what it needs to do. It's a bunch of guys riding a turtle.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it. It's either gonna go right below Abraxia or it's gonna go right above Sigvald.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. What is that? What is chat thing? I closed chat. What's the feeling?
Yeah. What is? Let's see here. How do we like the turtle gang?
The problem with Abraxia is I always picture my version of Abraxia where I fixed the things I didn't like about it. So I'm trying to.
Yeah, you do that a lot. A lot of people, not a lot of people. Some people say that like don't put the Howdah on this. I've seen it without the Howdah. It's weak, in my opinion. The Howdah.
You don't like it without that.
The Howdah adds a lot, and I'm not interested in your. I'll be honest with you. I'm not really interested in your 4 harpoon shots coming from an empty turtle. I'm like, okay. I guess it's shooting fireballs. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna say just put it below Abraxia.
Below Abraxia.
If people riot, they riot.
Why do you think people will riot?
Because I can see that. I think people like. If you like this model, people really like it.
That's probably true. But 12? 12 is pretty high up. I mean,
that's true.
Okay.
All right,
I don't think anybody
next?
can complain that we put the Leviathan on 12. Alariel.
Lariel's gonna go high for me, even though I have my problems with it. I think overall the goodness of it vastly outweighs the stuff I don't like about it. I'm gonna put this right below Rodigus.
Wow, higher than a Leviathan. Okay. And do you know
Yeah.
how to spell Alariel? Because I sure don't.
Just put Beetle Lady. We can go back and fix it later.
Beetle with an
That's
A?
Beetle.
Wrong
That's
Beetle.
Beetle like the Beatles.
Why is there 2 different Beetles? This doesn't even make sense. Okay.
I think Beatles is a pun.
Here, we'll do spelling. I mean, maybe somebody in chat knows how to spell Alariel. Can just.
Someone will fix it. You could put the Everqueen.
Okay.
And then.
Okay. Then, last but not least, is Gobsprak.
Gobsprak. These are all going to be relatively high. This goes right below. Ooh, this goes right below.
Yeah. This was a good crop here. This was.
Yeah.
Quite a crop of
good models.
That the Leviathan was our lowest rating. quite good. Okay.
Someone's going to throw a trident at me next time.
Here we go. Ready? We'll go through the list real quick so you can see. Ushiran remains number 1. We're going to start going.
Is that I don't think that's controversial, actually.
Ushiran number 1. I do.
I don't think...
I think
that most people would say he's quite good.
I think he's quite good. For me, he's too closed up, though. Like, I like Gobsprak, honestly, more than Ushiran, if I'm honest. Okay, scrolling down. I'm starting to think Sakar in 4. I think she's getting away with murder being up that high. I think
she's great, though. She's small, but she's really good.
Perfect
pose. Great stupid hat.
We got our Gargant center here in the mid-20s. Then we start moving down. We get to Frigio Cavalier has been kind of a bulwark of the good. It's sort of like one of our. If you're above Frigio Cavalier, you're probably pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're below, it gets a little iffy.
I think Snarlfang Cav is too high. We need to change that eventually.
Yeah, it might be. All the way down here, and then we're up to 88 models, right, folks? Now we did
Archeon being the last worst model we've ever seen.
I know, Archeon. I did want to thank Ty. Ty, thank you always for your support. We appreciate it. Gifting 5 memberships. This is great. We have a modest goal today. Ty got us like over halfway there right now. Ty,
thank you, Ty.
You know the deal here now. Because you gifted a membership, you get to. Now, you get to change our text here. It says, help us reach our membership goal. I can't remember who did that, but they went. Was it Nick Garcia? Was that you last time, Nick, who did that? It was low-hanging fruit. It was low-hanging fruit. It was low-hanging fruit for sure. So, Ty, how do we change this? I know you've been thinking this. I know you know the deal, Ty. It might have been Jupiter. That's right, Jupiter. How do we change, help us reach our membership goal? R is one of the switching R to R is one of ARE is one of the favorite is a favorite.
It's a triggering event for many people, understandably.
Yeah, we can spell reach wrong. We can get grammar wrong. You can insert commas, hyphens, colons, semicolons. We've had a lot. So Ty, if you're still there, think on this, please. Let us know. I'm keeping an eye on chat. We did KO. Oh my god, wait, I didn't update everything. Here, we did KO. I have a thing. You guys see it? It shows where we're doing things. Science, we did it. Let's chat today's topic.
Let's talk it.
All right, Ty, I'm on the lookout. I'm keeping an eye here for things. Okay, so here we go. Back to browser. Now, what I wanted to do today is chat. Yeah, I wanted to chat this concept I've been noticing that I'm going to call the narrative. Here, let's go back a few slides. The narrative nature of our new GHB. Now, I feel like Matt Rose has been sort of moving the game in this direction. But I will be honest, and I have up here a battle plan from last season. I thought, Saray, we'd start by talking about battle plans. Because, when you go to a narrative event, that's sort of often historically been what people change. I'll give you an example. I know Brad and I were going to narrative 40K events at LVO for a couple years in a row. And for a few years in a row, when we would go, you get a little bit of guideline on list building, but then you show up and basically all that really changes is the battle plans or the missions, right?
Yeah.
And they tend to be in the same vein, which is they give you these somewhat asymmetrical missions. I'm going to dig on narrative gaming here for a second when it's not well done. It often is well done. They often are not thought of in a context of what army is about to play this. 40K is a really good example of this, Ray, because Brad and I were playing Tau, like KO,
like the villains you are.
Yeah, like KO, or maybe like like other army factions we've talked about, right? KO,
Right.
Zinch,
Knights.
Knights in 40k, Sons of Behemoth, Night Haunt, sometimes even Deepkin. There are these factions that sort of transcend the norm.
Yeah.
You could make a narrative mission and forget that Eos can move 20 and still charge. Or you could make a narrative mission and forget that Night Haunt in this mission, whoever's blah, blah, blah can add 1 Ren to their weapon. Well, Ren's kind of a bad tool to manipulate in Sigmar because of Night Haunt. So, which are not an unpopular army, by the way. Like,
No.
they're fairly popular. So, that's sort of been my experience, is that people jump into missions or battle plans and say, I can make things more narrative here, this way.
Yeah.
You've played narrative events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, I largely agree. I think we'll get into it in a minute. Is that those events are not usually made by GW, right? So
No.
I don't think we can expect narrative events that do custom missions to have the same balance that goes into competitive play.
Right.
And then even within products from GW who make the game, you have oh my gosh, Ravaged Coast.
Ravaged Coast, all of the Path of Glory stuff, right?
Path of Glory stuff, yeah. Even that's like not very well balanced. But that's not really the point, right? The point is to do narrative storytelling. But what we're noticing in this new GHB is they're trying to put narrative elements. Well, I think they're they're giving narrative reasons for competitive rules is basically what we think, or that's what I think. Sorry, I don't want to speak for you.
Narrative reason for competitive rules. Let me think. I'm trying to think if I agree with that, or if it's the other way around. Competitive reasons for narrative rules.
So I would argue that if okay, well, do you want to talk rules, or do you want to stick with battle plans for the time being?
Let's talk. I actually don't have a fancy slide for just rules, but it might be a good place to actually start. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Is the reason I think that if there's a spectrum between narrative and competitive-minded rules, obviously they're going to lean more towards competitive-minded rules because it's match play. That's not surprising. So the reason I say it is basically a veneer or like a facade of narrative elements over a competitive rule set is, so look at obscuring. Or not obscuring and cover rules, right?
Yeah.
It is a rule that is meant to diminish the power of shooting. It is meant to, and to a lesser degree, magic, right? Anything that requires line of sight. And then they justify it through Guy Rand by saying, roots and stuff are coming out to block here.
You're in a jungle. You're in a forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, but like if you actually think about that, that would probably also affect movement.
And it doesn't.
And it doesn't, right?
At all. Yeah.
Right. And the reason that is because competitively, that's not what they don't want to have to balance around. That becomes very difficult to balance around.
Yeah.
I think you could also, I mean, the current ruling is if you're in cover and you want to shoot out of it, you get half range.
This is interesting.
That doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, you were talking about this yesterday. Like, yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's not really how the shooting would work. It should be something, if you're doing, like, narratively speaking, it should be like half the number of shots, because half your shots are getting, you're accidentally shooting into branches or tree trunks or whatever. Right. Reducing your range, it wouldn't reduce the range of anything. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, another option would have been maybe reduce the rend by 1 to represent to make more saves successful. Saves being represented by some of a Fusilier's bullets are just going into a tree. You essentially got armor from a tree, right?
Yes.
But you're not wrong. Like, it doesn't really necessarily. Maybe you think of an arrow. Okay, maybe an arrow hits some shrub, and then it gets a little deflected, but it's still going, but its range is reduced, I guess. But you think of something like a fusilier or a cannon or something. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that really reducing its range, but yet that's the rule, right? And that's, I think that's something that I really have learned to appreciate about the design aesthetic. I've noticed that I think Matt Rose does, which is he says, listen, I know that there's a narrative here that doesn't quite work, but at the end of the day, this is a game. And one of the biggest things he does is says, okay, that cool black coach, Scourge of Gyran black coach. What a black coach can turn into a wizard, it can pick up crit mortals, or it can give extra rally dice. You pick one. But that ability to pick one of those three things is one black coach. Why? Yeah. Narratively speaking, if one black coach can do it, why can't two black coaches do it? One black coach could do it one turn, and the other could do it the other turn. Right? I've been taking the double black coach list. They can't both become wizards. It's once per turn army.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Narratively, no. But can you imagine the shit show we'd be in if 3 Witch Elf units could fight twice in one turn?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to reemphasize that, like, what we're saying is not like, or it's not like something super like a revelation or thing. This is for matched play, right? So obviously matched play, like, balanced rules are always going to come first. But I guess when we're looking at Scourge of Gyran, it's a pretty different take than what we've seen in previous seasons, right? Seasons always kind of have a theme around them. But, you know, wild magic is very different than the places of power are going to can make stuff obscuring. Mm-hmm. If you're in cover, you have all these rules. So I don't know. I guess where do we like that? Do we feel like
right?
Do we feel like how much do we feel like this is actually governing the rules? Because could we have done? Sorry,
no. Go ahead, please.
Finish this thought. Do these rules? Could you put them in any other setting and have it still make sense? Could we put this in? We're not Scourge of Gyran. We're Scourge of what's the Dark Realm? I forget.
Ogle.
Yeah, Ogle.
Yeah.
Well, when you get next to cover, shadows come out. Like, is that any different?
Yeah.
In fact, that might make more. Scourge of Akshi. Oh, there's so much smoke and fire when you get close to stuff. Like, is that any different than branches?
And I guess this is a question I want to ask for chat. So answer in chat. We like to talk to you guys in chat. Have the conversation here with us.
Yeah.
How do you feel that narrative is encroaching on your competitive play, on your match play? And like the thing is, this is a match play book. That's why I'm asking it that way. Not, I know there are narrative gamers who don't want competitiveness encroaching on their narrative gaming, right?
Right.
But, do you feel like this is encroaching? And I think actually, Liam, what you're saying, all this talk of narrative and competitive while poor open play got abandoned like an unloved child. Yeah. I think open play is sort of like, was hard to brand, was hard to like, what does that mean? But do folks feel like right now, it is, Ty, I'm kind of coming from the standpoint that I think we're in a good balance right now, but, does it affect the rules? Does it make match play worse? Like what when we are making, sorry, like you're saying, we're making some concessions. We're saying, okay, I stand in a forest, I can't be seen. That's strong. So I can't have unlimited, I can't be the most awesome shooting unit, because that's super powerful for shooting, actually, right? Like, can sit in the forest and can't be seen.
And I think a lot of people, you know, tend to poo-poo competitive gamers, which is fair, right? You don't always want to be playing competitive, but I think it's important to remember that competitive players are the ones who make GW have to balance the game.
Yeah,
And even when you're playing narratively, you want balance, right?
definitely.
You don't you I think I'm going to maybe upset some heresy players. A very vocal community about being narrative first, right? And then what happened is all of Horus Heresy 2.0 Dreadnought spam was ridiculous.
Yeah,
And all everyone took was, or they took the veteran army because
right.
they were just really good.
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, sure, you know, I think as much as you push like we're a narrative community first, like people are still going to take advantage of it. And then what ends up happening is that stuff doesn't get addressed, and it's just kind of annoying. So, you know, I think maybe this version of matched play first, narrative elements second, but still present, is maybe the way to make for a better play experience.
yeah.
I think I I don't know. I guess there's sometimes I wish it was a little bit stronger in the narrative elements. I don't want no narrative elements. I don't want strictly competitive because, you know, Warhammer's never going to be a perfectly balanced competitive game anyway.
Right.
And you know, we play Warhammer because we like the visuals of these armies clashing together. We, you know, because if we didn't care about that, we wanted a strictly competitive game, we would just play chess, right? Or we'd play, you know,
You'd play chess, yeah, or you'd play
yeah,
Go
right.
or
If we want
something, yeah.
perfect balance, and we don't care about actual visual stuff, then why are you playing Warhammer?
It's the wrong game to play in that context. Appleberry says, I believe that the game should be made solely for competitive players. Competitive players always figure out a way to make a game competitive. That's probably true.
Yeah,
And then I also like Stromingfish says, balance is a mirage. That's kind of true in wargaming.
in Warhammer especially,
Yeah.
it is, right.
Start with a fun game and look at the balance. That's Appleberry. Yeah, I think that's important. One of the things I will do, and the Fault Line guys do this for Maelstrom Mixer, is when they make these missions, they look and they say, are both players going to have fun? Or are you suggesting, here's the narrative, you get your ass beat? That's not fun. Like, dude, people are flying into Vegas from the East
Yeah.
Coast, from the West Coast, driving long distances to be here to play this event of yours, and you're telling them stand in the middle and try to live, like against Tau and a weird Tau Tyranid,
Yeah.
like oh, the
Yeah.
reason I have Tau and Tyranids together is because the Tau have a special device that's luring the Tyranids. Great narrative, cool. Yeah, we all played StarCraft. The thing is, that's not fun for that Votan player.
For the play, yeah.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, his Gene Stealer cult ally can jump around and do stuff. But, like,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just, it falls apart quick. And it's just like, is this really what we want? Like, no, balance matters. Like, the game matters. Actually, just the game and the balance, even for a narrative event, for me, really need to come first. Like, I need to look at this thing and say, okay, I can see how both players are going to have fun here. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Path to Glory is still, they try to keep the balance in mind, but I think they're a little more willing to just say like, all right, but like at this, just whatever at a certain point, right? If you look at those upgrade trees, it starts to get a little ridiculous for some things, which is fine and fun. But I think, as a base, how do I put this? I think we've gotten to a point where narrative gaming is the more hardcore version of the game. And that it requires more investment.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, it requires more investment. It requires probably some amount of pre-planning with your opponent. It's not pick up and play like match play, which is meant to be a balanced, out of the box game with narrative, some light narrative elements.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at a couple key things here.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to show a mission.
Okay.
We've got some context now. I want to show a battle plan from the last GHB, Close to the Chest. Close to the Chest is a great match play mission. I don't think there's anything particularly rich about its lore. They give you the lore for some of these battle plans. You can look and see what's going on. Close to the Chest says something like, enemies are in tunnels and closing in on each other or something like that.
Right.
If you recall, we were. This is my point. Like, think about this. You guys may have forgotten this, but we were encouraged last season to remember that we were in Akshi. We were the Great Parch, and that there were a lot of underground caverns, and that we were doing a lot of underground fighting.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Saray? Did you remember that we were doing underground fighting?
Yeah. About it.
Nope. There was nothing to make us feel that way. There's nothing to make us feel like this was underground, and we were doing all this underground combat. Right now on the channel, if you are a fan of our channel, of our live battle reports, you've been watching since Scorch of Gyran started, you'll notice that we always have a forest style board for the past. We've switched it up a bit. We have a watery forest. We have an autumny forest. Last time we had like a kind of a grass pine forest. But I didn't think to do that because it wasn't really being sold last edition. We ended up making an underground board and their glue spike board. But whatever happened last edition that made you go, oh yeah, this is underground?
Nothing.
Nothing.
There's no real, as far as I can remember, I don't think there were any real rules interactions.
There should have definitely been something about teleporting units. There could have been something about that. You can only teleport 18 inches. Or a scatter die could have been interesting. Like something, right? Like nothing. So
a scatter die. Now that's narrative. That's narrative. bring back scatter dice.
Now, if you recall last edition, also what was our rule? What was our seasonal rules? Honor Guard. Honor Guard was a great seasonal rule to introduce 4th edition. It kind of just said, here's one little tweak, one little slight layer on top of the new edition. It's going to go away in a year. Again, I'm on record, along with Meg, as saying we didn't really like it. We didn't hate it. It just was kind of blah. I think blah is okay because there's a whole new edition. To start off. But
hardly narrative.
I don't think there's a lot of narrativeness going on. Now, here's Noxious Nexus. Saray, did you and I play this one?
No, it was you and Meg.
Me and Meg. In this one, you are going out to claim this Heartwood objective. Now, first of all, right away, we have objectives that are specific, right? In this one, you're going out to grab this one. Dude, I include... Oh, this was actually from us yesterday, Saray. This is from Roiling Roots. What I was going to say before we get here, though, is with this one has this weird match play thing of you get whoever controls it at the end of the game gets 10 points.
Yeah.
That's a somewhat balanced mechanic. It might favor the person who goes second a little bit, conceivably, but kind of not really.
Yeah.
Because remember, in Sigmar, you can stand on the middle of an objective and basically screen it out. So if somebody wants to take it from you, i.e. the person going second, if you're standing there with a Great Unclean One who's only got a few wounds on him, Nurgle player just scored 10 points, probably, right?
Right.
So I immediately much more narrative as far as I'm concerned. But what I wanted to say, Saray and folks at home, was it's the underdog twists for me that really are selling these as, quite frankly, narrative missions dressed up as competitive play.
Competitive, okay.
This right here, this is strong. This was in our game last night. We actually never came into play, but Strike Last for whoever's holding both green or both, like, on the red or green objectives.
Right.
Because these tendrils, you're fighting in the forest and it's coming to life around you. Super cool. This kind of helps sell that narrative. We fought in a forest last night on the table. Just very easy to imagine these vines going everywhere, getting on enemies, everybody, right? And passing out strike last.
I think this is one that is, I think, a little more tied to Gairan in my mind. I think, it's a little bit harder to sell Smoke and Fire making you fight last in Akshi,
Mm-hmm.
It's it makes me curious. Like, I don't want to jump ahead, but like, what does the future hold? Are we going to see, like, if you're, let's say we go to Akshi again, you just catch on fire.
You can't, you're on fire.
All
the units of the objective, they're on fire now.
They're on fire now.
But here's the thing. Like, you saying that is part of what's going on. As you say, it makes me wonder, and maybe even look forward to, like, what's going to happen in the future. Like, the setting, where does it take place? We're now in Gairan. We were previously in Akshi. I'm very interested to see where the final setting for this edition lands.
Yeah.
We were
Hopefully
told
not Akshi again.
we were told this was a Akshi, kind of centered around Hammer Hall Akshi.
Yeah.
I'm fingers crossed for City, for being in the city, for being in Hammer Hall Akshi itself. I want city fights. I've been wanting city fights in Sigmar for so long. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be able to store buildings. Yeah.
AOS
urban warfare.
More Zone Mortalis.
But it'd be cool, right? That's something actually we said we want to do, right? Zone Mortalis AOS.
That'd be really fun.
We do need to do that. I like this. I'm wondering how competitive players are going to digest some of this stuff. I'm going to Old Town Throwdown later in August, later in the summer. Yeah. Be interesting to see how it goes down there. This is the rule. This is a competitive match play rule, right? It's strong. You don't want to be the one getting fight last, but what can you do, right?
And it fits narratively. I'm still on the side of it's competitive with a veneer of narrative.
Right. So what if you were making and this is one of the things I remember reading literally it might have been a White Dwarf when they were talking about narrative play. They said a good place to start, and I actually think this is bad advice. A good place to start is to make up all your rules for your battle plan for your mission, and then throw half of them away. Okay. That's super arbitrary, and I hate that kind of arbitrary advice on any kind of creative process or design. But it's sort of like, how many rules would you want, Saray, if this was a narrative mission? And there are vines. What else would you want to see, right?
So yeah. So I was actually just going to say that narrative doesn't always mean it's going to necessarily be more fun.
Right.
I think again, I like Horus Heresy. I don't want anyone to think I don't like Horus Heresy, but I'm remembering some things that were like difficult terrain spells, and it's just like, this is just not fun. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it's narrative, but this is like annoying and not fun and complicated in a way that's not interesting. It's narrative, but it's not good.
It's funny. You're trying to be nice about. I'll say this: when I was playing Horus Heresy, I found the games of Horus Heresy I played, which was somewhat local, but also I went to 2 or 3 national events, and played people from all over the country, people from the UK. What I will say about the Horus Heresy is the number one. I disliked this about the Horus Heresy community. This was years ago. This is pre-COVID. I found the community to be mired in narrative, until you got to the gameplay table, and then you ended up so often just getting wrecked or wrecking your opponent and being like, I'm sorry, I thought this was like, I thought we were having a narrative time.
Yeah.
And
Yes, that is
and
common thing.
A lot of games felt like no matter how hard we tried, we ended up with some feels bad, and you were kind of like, okay, I'm sorry, or like, you know, the person just picked you up in 2 rounds. I got picked up by an Astra or a Solar Auxil army.
Yeah.
My first game in Heresy Camp.
This is Heresy 1.
Heresy 1. Showed up with my 1,000 Suns. Played this guy. It was unbelievably unfun. Yeah. I slowly walked towards him while he just picked me up. And then, you know, he's like, yeah, it's just a bad matchup. He's like, I played your buddy, our friend Andrew, who's been on the channel. He's like, I went down there with him, and right before Andrew had played this guy, and he's like, you know, I played your buddy's Knight Lords, and he just picked me up because they just rush, they're fast, and then they just shred light infantry. Meanwhile, I'm trying to pick off a Horde army with an elite army whose main weapon is a Strength 10 AP2 blast that they shoot out, right? Like from a psychic power. And it's like, I feel like whenever I was playing Heresy, I was either ruining my opponent's time or my opponent was ruining my time. And I really had to zone in with a few good friends who played Heresy. I really had to like lock in with a few people to be like, okay, now we know what works, right? I haven't felt like I've had to do that with Sigmar match play. I feel like whenever we show up, like we really on the channel, back when I was at Titans, we really spent a lot of time looking at a matchup and saying, will this be a good game on stream? We really do very little of that here. Very little. There's a couple models we think about. Croak.
Yeah.
Will Croak work? Will Croak be totally neutered? Because if he is, that's dumb. And will Croak just wreck this army, right? I think Marathi kind of, but not really. For the most part, everybody kind of knows what you need to do with Marathi. Like, can you think of any, Saray? What else do we look at and say, we got to be really careful, or this is going to swing and be unfun?
Any huge models, Kragnos, Nagash.
Kragnos, yeah. With Nagash, it's almost always like, will the person playing Nagash not just lose immediately? It's not with Nagash. It's never will Nagash roll this army. It's the opposite. It's like
it's the opposite. Yeah.
Does he have a chance? Yeah.
Yeah. Carl Tuttle. Yeah, I agree. Maelstrom Mixer is like a great event. We don't have Graham or Brett in the chat, but I would slightly disagree with the rules don't make something narrative. I think what the point of this stream is that it needs to be a mix of the two, because if you look at Maelstrom Mixer, it starts off as functionally matched play, but then they tweak it, right?
Yeah.
That's how they make their missions. Yeah, you're right in that a rule, just because you make a rule narrative doesn't mean it's narrative. I agree with that. But there's a balance here, and I think what we're trying to get to is, I think that this Scourge of Gairan finds a good balance. Sometimes it feels a little artificial, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I think I when I'm playing, I often feel like, yeah, I'm in a forest, or a jungle. This feels different than if I were on a desert plain.
Yeah, and we're doing aesthetic things, like we said. This is, by the way, Carl from the Independent Characters, folks at home.
Oh, cool.
If you don't know that podcast, that's an OG.
Oh, yeah, we interviewed him.
We interviewed Carl, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you told him he ruined your life.
Yeah, he did. So this is, we've been doing aesthetic things for this, right? We've been actually, like I said, we've been only played on Force since Gairan has started. I'm going through, I'm looking at all the boards that we have, and I'm kind of retweaking them to make them all forests, right? We've been working on a lot of trees right now. I think, like, I do feel like that it does sometimes feel a little artificial. And whenever that happens, I kind of ask myself, is that a good thing, because otherwise would this be one of those BS narrative rules, right?
Right.
Yeah, Liam says, don't be mean to Nagash. Yeah, I know. I think Nagash, the end of third, he was really bad at the end of third, if I remember correctly.
He's talking about narrative.
I know, yeah.
He's talking lore.
Carl says, I would agree. Doesn't need to swing the pendulum entirely one direction.
Yeah.
There's a balance. And the players need to have the same idea at the table. And that's sort of...
Exactly.
That's
real narrative play.
But that's really what the challenge of making a book is. Like a seasonal book is to say, here's the idea. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what... If you think about that's what... I'm going to go highbrow here. I just finished listening to this book, Sapien. And in it, the author talks about... He talks about money. And he says, in antiquity, there's actually a board game that focuses on this point called Alhambra, where you have different currencies and you kind of have to like make do with like the different currencies. But the point is, like, even in antiquity or even today, you can be in Nepal and buy something with American dollars. And it's like, because you could be a German businessman buying something from a Chinese businessman in Nepal with American dollars. And that's because everyone agrees that this unit of currency has value, right? When I show up, we all have to say, here's the match playbook. We all agree this works, right? So it circumnavigates that conversation that we always talk about needing to have and says, this is why. And frankly, I started in a narrative 40K group, but I've gravitated more towards well-designed match play because of exactly what I was looking for with narrative, which is this conversation, right? But what I found is the conversation was even harder to have than Matt Rose saying, here's a book, this is the conversation, do this.
Yeah. So in that, yeah, exactly right. So match play, I think, is generally what people accept as the standard now.
Right.
I guess the question is that how it should be? Should Path to Glory be the standard? I guess the real question is Path to Glory actually even more narrative? Is it actually more narrative? I don't know.
Well, it's more, it helps you, it's more narrative from the context of your force. It lets you, and we're going to talk about this with battle tactics here in a second, but it helps you build your force, and it helps you, like, especially characters, right? Heroes. It helps you make heroes. And the nice thing about Path to Glory, even in the books, they really encourage you to model this hero, like like model a hero. Oh, you have a hag queen, but the hag queen has an axe, which you can do. Normally a hag queen never has an axe. So get an axe, you got to put it on a witch elf or whatever, and you're making like this different model with a different weapon or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Path to Glory, unfortunately, that's not actually unfortunate. Path to Glory has a little bit of extra baggage, a little bit of extra homework, which I think makes it kind of annoyingly less appealing to casual play.
A little bit.
Which is kind of what I was getting into earlier about, like, I think it's a little bit actually more for hardcore gamers.
I think you want to play some match play before you jump into Path to Glory.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Terrain. This is a place of power. We used this image last week to represent a place of power. This is an actual place of power used in the game here at the Hobby Collab on stream. Yeah. Place of power is I think a nice touch for this move from competitive to narrative. I like this concept that terrain doesn't strictly just provide a traditional terrain rule, i.e. cover, slowing down movement, etc., whatever. But instead, you interact with it in this way that it has, in the current edition, triggers healing.
Yep.
Or
healing.
Causes a nearby place to get covered in vines and growth and become obscuring. That's super cool, right? You go to this fountain. I'm imagining, your orc war boss, honestly, like wishing on a coin and flipping it in there, and then the nearby building, if he gets the roll, the nearby building, getting covered in vines, so the weird brute Rekkas can sneak up and not get shot at. Right? It's kind of cool. You can tell a story with a place of power. Yeah. More terrain that has an effect. 40K needs a little bit more of this. 40K needs like, make sure you put down 2 comms relays on the board, and the comms relay does this or it does that. Like, this was such a big hit that GW was so nervous about for so long. I think they were so nervous about a piece of terrain that you walk up and you just outside of narrative play, because we would see this in narrative play. But I think they were really nervous about a piece of terrain where you walk up and you roll die, and on a 3-up, you get this cool effect that happens somewhere on the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that terrain feels more... It's what you said, just feels more interactive, right? Before, terrain was very passive, right? It's just, well, if you're near it, it does this thing. So I like being able to, have even if it's limited right now with places of power, functionally make changes to them. It makes me wonder, like, what are they going to? Will they do more with that kind of stuff in the future? I don't know how crazy you can get with it, but like, is it Hish that has like floating buildings?
Yeah.
Well, are we going to have, like, moving terrain if we go to Hish? That would be crazy, right?
Well,
is that too much?
I don't think so. I think that sounds amazing. I will say this. There's one thing that as a Matt Rose fanboy, I've noticed that I appreciate about him. We know that his first GHB was the last in third edition. And then, so this is his third GHB. And what he has shown is that he is not building off a framework. He resets the framework every time.
Yes.
This is wildly different, right? But because that isn't what it used to be. When I started third ed, there was a framework. And the framework was Season 1, big monsters. Season 2, foot heroes. Season 3, foot infantry units, right? The framework was we focus on a style of unit each time. And we all came to think that that's just how the game was going to be, until Matt Rose showed up and said, nope, that's actually not what's happening. We're redesigning a whole new framework. I'm not taking a framework and saying each time we get new terrain that does different things. So, like, you're right, Saray. Like, the instinct is we start thinking, okay, well, what would happen if we go back to Akshi and there's places of power that have these cool rules? What will they do? Put out smoke? Put out lava? What will they do?
No, it might just be completely different.
Completely different framework. It's a video game. New engine every edition. New engine from the ground up. I agree. I think moving terrain would be awesome. By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to hop in and look at some of the chat. I kind of miss all the strange terrain in 7th 40K. Yeah, that's something we've heard. I mean, Carl was running an event at Adepticon, right?
Yeah.
About using old terrain because older terrain rules and different types of terrain.
And by old terrain, we also mean
we mean last edition.
We mean like a year, like 18 months old. Like was the moon base I painted?
Oh man, that terrain
Fronteras,
is so cool.
The Fronteras
stuff. Fronteras terrain.
It's so cool. It was already couldn't be used in competitive play.
So Gnome, you are not the only one for sure.
No, Gnome,
you're Matt.
Sorry, real quick, Saray. Gnome is right. He brings up the pipes. The pipes used to have a thing where if you shot a flamer near them, I think the flamer could reroll its wound rolls or something. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like it picked up extra promethium and did like more damage or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's exploding pipes. Liam T saying, having run a Path to Glory campaign recently, I found that 4.0 has a good framework. I think that makes sense. We agree. But the investment of players, I think it's kind of...
Yeah. Yeah, you get
just not enough time to play AOS.
Yeah, that's it, right? You get good players, you're gonna make anything work, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. No, like if something like if a 6 got rolled or something.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like
could blow
pipes,
up and
like gas pipes go out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now see that bring that back. I love that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple too. It's just kind of annoying. It's like God damn it.
It can be done easily on a, like, you're in cover, I shoot you, when it's all over, we roll die on a 1, this, D3 mortal damage also, or whatever, right?
Okay,
And-
sorry. This is random. Sorry.
Yeah.
I need to go off on a tangent.
that's
I don't
good.
know if this is narrative. To me, it's narrative. Or narrative-esque. Okay, so something we've seen in both 40k and AOS is this more mortal wounds. Just mortal wounds everywhere.
Yeah.
And so correct me if I'm wrong. There were a lot of rules in, again, Horus Heresy. This is me being positive about Horus Heresy.
Okay.
Where I think instead of there were a couple of cases where in places like 40k, like a plasma, I think you would take mortal wounds. But I think in Heresy it would just count as like you shot yourself. I might be mistaking that, but I think it was like you basically shot yourself. So if you're a Terminator wearing 2-up armor, it's like, obviously that's not how Horus Heresy works, but you get what I'm saying. You make a save against it. That isn't a ward. It's just like, well, because I'm wearing better armor, this wouldn't hurt me as bad, as opposed to mortal wounds are just universally hurting you no matter what in the same way.
Well, mortal wounds, mortal damage is an interesting narrative / competitive concept, right? It's meant to represent something that is really designed to speed the game along. And it helps us say, okay, so you go into this forest, it has a special rule, and on a roll die and on a 1, take D3 mortal damage. And it's been criticized, especially in the 40k world, where they also have toughness, where you sort of chew through, the wrong Terminator taking 3 mortal damage versus, Termagants taking 3 mortal damage, right?
Yeah.
Well, 3 Termagants is not quite worth 1 Terminator. And so it says this is really not a fair rule. Now, I think the way Sigmar has sort of made mortal, and I think why Sigmar players, it's funny, whenever we're doing something and like teaching a 40k player Sigmar or something, and they find out they're about to take D3 mortal damage, so they're like, ugh! In Sigmar, you're like, okay, this is like, dude, wait till some of the spells.
This is light.
Wait
till the end of the turn disease rolls.
Wait till you play Croak.
Yeah.
Your hero phase, you will take 20 of these, and part of the reason there's a little justification there. One, they have way more 2-up saves and 3-up saves than we have in Sigmar, so you're paying for those higher saves. Yeah, the 2-up save is virtually unheard of in Sigmar, so you're paying for those higher saves, but also they have toughness, right? And instead of toughness, what we have to show that an orc is tougher than a human is it has two health. Well, guess what that's going to do? It's going to make D3 mortal damage hurt less orcs, right? Yep. When D3 mortal damage goes off on humans, it might kill 3. And when it goes off on orcs, it's going to kill 1.5 at best.
Also, just a much higher prevalence of wards. And I think that,
as well.
The game is also designed around damage carrying over, which is not something in
40k, right?
So you just have D3 mortals is a completely different kettle of fish.
No, I remember like playing a lot of Sigmar and then going back and playing like I think after I started really diving deep into Sigmar, I think I ended up playing something like 6 40k games after that until I haven't now played for about 2 years, probably 2.5 years, and I remember there was like a Tau stratagem that's like you can only use this once per game. It costs 2 CP. Pick a unit that just blah, blah, blah. They take 1d3 mortal wounds. And I was like, what? That's a complete waste of all these resources. I was like, I'm not going to do that to kill 2 Termagants. Like, that is BS. Like, but man, they're really careful with them in 40k. And it's interesting to see the difference in those games in that regard. I don't know how it is now in 40k. I feel like they're becoming more prevalent and that they're interacting with it differently, but
there's been a slow shift. I think the games play off of each other. They learn things from each other as editions go on. So we see 40k-esque rules in AOS, and I'm sure it bounces back. So
fight first, fight
I don't
last.
know. I don't know why we went off
stuff.
that tangent about mortal wounds.
Well,
That's not-
no,
really-
I mean, what in the context of narrative versus competitive match play, mortal wounds, mortal damage, as we call it now in Sigmar, is super interesting because if you take it out of 40k for now and just put it in Sigmar, we'll just have that conversation. It's meant to represent in many cases something that just kind of happens. And it's better than getting bogged down in the issues of saying, okay, a weird bomb got thrown into your unit.
Right.
Let's roll.
I gotta roll for it. I gotta hit my
Right,
toughest.
right.
It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's abbreviation. It's not the exact right term, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yes. Yeah. If you saw the what was the show that did like the arcade games, Secret Level,
secret level. Yeah.
and so Secret Level, spoiler if you haven't seen it. Okay, you watch the Space Marines kind of go through and wreck everything. Right? They wreck Zangors, they wreck cultists. Then they get to like this, maybe the closest thing you would describe him as. He's not a greater demon of Tzeentch, some kind of like Tzeentch Herald level, like
Yeah.
yeah, and you see how
Demon,
this guy,
sorcerer.
you see how this guy takes out one or two Space Marines.
Yeah.
And Meg and I were watching it, and I think we were high, but we were watching it, and we saw it. He goes into the Space Marine's mind and does all this shit, and then at the end of it, the Space Marine's just like bisected and cut in half and just dead. Yeah. And we were like, wow, that's mortal damage right there. That's what mortal damage looks like, right? Yeah. Like, we don't need to do all these rolls, which I guess Horus Heresy is in fighting, of like willpower.
No, they still have stuff that goes straight through.
No, I know, but they're having all these new rolls, like willpower roll and all this stuff.
Oh yeah, the new stuff. Yeah,
that's what you would be you'd be rolling all that against that demon. Now, like in 40k or in Sigmar, they're just kind of like, this demon does D3.
You're not beating
damage.
This demon.
yeah, he just slices open a Space Marine.
This demon's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, truncation, I guess, is sort of the word we're looking for. Mortal damage is meant to just speed along a process that, quite frankly, sorry, I think is narrative. It's usually some kind of narrative attack. Chain lightning. Some lightning spell, right? Just like something that just zaps. Doesn't maybe matter how much armor you have on. It just sort of matters how hefty you are, how much... I always think of health. Why does a Witch Elf have 1 health, a Stormcast have 2, and a Hag Queen have 5? And she's the same size as a Witch Elf. I always think of health as like it's a little bit of plot armor, but it's sort of like it's something they've earned by being able to keep themselves alive. I've always same with D&D and hit points, right? These are narrative things meant to sort of have a good match play reason. My Hag Queen shouldn't have 1 health. She'll die.
Yeah.
like it's not going to be fun. She probably is the same toughness, realistically, right, as a Witch Elf. But I don't want her to have 1 health. I don't want my, you don't want your Chaos Champion to have 2 health.
Wrong. Heresy right again. Your general 3 health.
Deal with it.
Yeah, your Tactical Marines have 1 health, he has 3. It's 3 times as tough, but he's not invincible.
Here, I do have pulled up here the terrain rules. These are the current terrain rules for Gairan. Centered a lot around obscuring. I think they hit a lot of things nails on the head. And I would say 2 things. I want to talk about monsters, and I want to talk about fly. Now, monster is super interesting. I think we can all agree we don't hate the idea that I'm in Gairan, I'm a Fusilier, and I'm about to take aim at some Plague Bearers, but they go into the forest, the thick, magical forest, and I can't really see them. By contrast, the Great Unclean One is going to struggle to evade my sight, right?
Yes.
And so
that makes sense.
I should shoot him all game long. Now, I will say this. As a person who has 2 armies that almost entirely fly, Deepkin and Nighthawk, I almost wish there was a rule where at the start of a hero phase, I could say my fly units are landing. And it, would have to have some effect, but I'm glad there isn't. Let me say this. I'm glad there isn't a rule because it's too convoluted. What would happen when a Nighthaunt army lands? Well, they lose fly, so they lose the ability to go over terrain. Does their movement stay 8? Probably not, right? Probably 5, or they're essentially humans.
Half the movement, right?
Yeah, they're essentially humans, right? So, in ghost form, so like 5 movement, but then or you say half, and then now they move 4. They move the same as dwarves now. Like, it's very convoluted, right? Fly is supposed to have its own types of benefits. For Nighthaunt, we don't really care because we have this 4-up unrendable save. You can shoot at me, and I know half of everything you do is not going to do anything. But honestly, a faction I do play where this can be challenging is Deepkin. That said, Deepkin moves so fast that I can often just be out of range in your turn, and then still charge you in my turn. Where I see this more problematic, Saray, isn't full armies that have fly, like KO even, right? KO have good saves, again, good movement, a lot of tricks to deal with this. You do have guys you can drop off and land, right, and hide. I see this as problems for people who have one-off things. We saw this in the very first game a guy ran. We saw Brad mercilessly pound Steven's Morghast Archai with cannons, the ogre cannons, because they were the only thing he could see. The rest of it, even Catacross, I think, actually is still not a monster. So, like, everything else is just hidden. Why are these Morghast Archai not landing? Why aren't they looking down at the Morshak Garden being like, boy, if I just went down there, I could stop getting shot at by these giant fucking cannonballs, right? So, like, do you want your fly units to be able to land?
Good question.
They should be. I mean, right?
Should flying units already be -1 to hit? is kind of the next question.
Yeah.
They're flying.
Right. Flying is, for context though, it's funny because people will say things like flying is a liability in Sigmar. I remember the 3rd game we streamed. You can go back and watch it too. It was one of my friends was playing Aaron Newbaum from Aaron Elias Newbaum from SoCal was playing at LVO, the 3rd game we streamed, and his opponent went to move a pig or went to charge a pig, but he had to cut through a tower yeah. And Aaron said, "Hold on, you're not measuring this right?" He called him out, and I'm so glad he did, because that charge went from 8 to like 11, and the guy he was playing had a good attitude, and I think the guy he was playing got it right away. I think he said, "Oh shit, this guy's right." Like a big pig doesn't just cut through. And it's like, it's kind of just the edge, but like, look at your base, dude. Your base is gonna hit this.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Aaron did that, because right then and there we said, well, this is what makes fly good, everybody. Right there. That is an 8-inch charge for fly. And we forget that fly is actually strong because of its core, just simply what it does. Then we say things like this, like you can't get cover if you have fly, and you can be seen all day long if you have fly. Fly is it's really powerful if we take those things away.
Agree. Just being able to, and you do a not a retreat,
all defense,
redeploy in the right area, and you cut a corner that they can't cut, and suddenly their 3-inch charge goes to a 9-inch charge.
That's huge, actually. Redeploying the right fly unit, if you're using terrain the way it's supposed to be used, if you have enough terrain on the board, which a lot of RGTs don't have enough, by the way. Yeah. But if you have enough on the board, a redeploy on a fly unit in and around a terrain piece can be lights out for that unit getting charged. Yeah.
Exactly, right? If you cut it right, it's much.
You cut it, and they're never going to cut it. They have to go all around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Super interesting. But this is another one of those rules. I'm kind of glad monsters can be shot. Liam, yeah, but see, that's Liam says. At what point do we give monsters the option to duck and cover? Well, I don't think they can. I think they're always too big. A monster's too big to get out being shot. The point is, should eels, Achelian, like Morsar Guard, should instead of flying above the forest, can they not land in the forest? Have their movement rate, as Saray says. Now they move 7. But they don't have fly. They also, I guess, don't cut through terrain anymore or whatever. Like, how does that work, It's kind of interesting stuff. This is a place where I wanted to say, it's your point, Saray. When do we say it needs to make sense narratively versus it needs to just make sense gameplay-wise?
It just needs to, yeah, exactly. I think this is kind of a good example of it. It's like... Yeah, you could potentially... I actually don't think this would be... What I'm about to say would be probably fine on its own, but it starts to introduce this idea of like rules bloat. You could probably have a flying high above the clouds or flying below the canopy. Right. And if you're flying below the canopy, you still get the benefits of not being seen if you're in cover. Or you get the benefits of cover and such like that. But then... Now for every fly unit, you have 2 versions of moving with them.
Right.
And then you start. Then you start to need to be thinking about other things, and it starts to get to be maybe a bit much.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a slippery slope necessarily, but like I think for the sake of gameplay, it's probably fine where it's at.
I think it's fine where it's at. I'd hate to see it manipulated in ways that were unfun. Do you remember, folks at home, you may not remember this, Saray, do you guys remember like this thing you could do, I think it was in 5th or maybe even 7th or 6th, that people would do in 40K where you had to apply wounds to models that had different things, or you could apply wounds. So like people would take these units. It was, I think the 2 big offenders were like Orc Mechs and like Grey Knight Terminators, where you put a different piece of war gear on each model so that you could spread out the wounds. So when you start doing wounds, instead of having to pull the one Terminator, you can be like, all right, wound 1 goes on the Terminator with the all specs. Wound 2 goes on the Terminator with no all specs. And
it was a problem in Heresy for, I don't know if that ever got FAQ'd, but there was an Ultramarines unit that could do that. And it was
Liam
annoying.
says you can still do it to some. That stuff is bullshit. God, that stuff is bullshit. And it's funny that those things are so crazy to me, because they fulfill neither of these goals. They're not narrative.
Yeah.
And they
I think
not,
those are rules overlooked. Big overlooked.
But they hang out forever. They hang out for so long.
Yeah.
Wound allocation stuff has been a mess historically. I think Sigmar 4 has finally got it right, honestly. It took this long for GW to figure out wound allocation. I don't even think about wound allocation anymore. It's just like, it feels like this is how it always should have been. Yeah.
For the sake of ease of gameplay. There's some things where I'm like kind of interested that I think kind of strike an interesting balance. I think, in again, we just keep going back to Heresy. Heresy has a lot of rules to critique. Being able to, because you shoot model by model, so theoretically you can pull yourself out of range. It's kind of interesting. Shooting in the same way that we do in combat in AOS.
Yeah, Heresy is a narrative setting by nature.
Yeah. Again, I like Heresy a lot. It has a lot of things to critique.
It's a narrative setting by nature, but then they sort of micro manage your narrativeness for you. And I think when you do that, you get into some big problems. And I think we see that every edition. Every Heresy's always dealing with that. There's always, even without playing, I know that when 1.5 came out, suddenly I knew that there's a big grenade thing. And I was like, one day I looked into it, I was like, what's the grenade thing? What are they talking about? And it was kind of it was just this bullshit. It was like little ways you manipulate the rules, that grenades are like freaking crazy powerful right now, right?
Yeah.
And
you have things like the one guy in your squad who has artificer armor,
tanking the whole.
It's weird, guys. Isn't it weird how this supposedly narrative thing just became like a weird meta thing?
And isn't it weird how all those shots went in to hit that guy?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's not narrative. Yeah,
that's
dude.
Not narrative. Why is this guy getting shot so much?
It's wild to me that they do it. How Heresy processes narrative is just not something I've ever really been into. Just seeing it over and over again.
Don't gel with it.
It has not gelled with me in any of these editions, and I think that's okay. My guess is Old World. My guess is Old World isn't either. I think those games.
They're meant for different audiences, right?
Yeah,
I think that, again, there are things I love about Heresy that I wish would get picked up in other games. I think they're like very heavy emphasis on like a very designed. My gosh, it's not called regiments, but essentially what we have in AOS is regiments. I think that's something great. I think that would be something I wouldn't hate to be brought over to AOS. It's like, oh, you're in a cavalry you're a cavalry army, so you get these cavalry rules, and you it's not necessarily specific to your faction. I guess it's different because there's a very heavily emphasis on Space Marines, so it's not like as much emphasis on my salamanders,
Right. Well, this is actually kind of leads in perfectly to this last chunk here, which is battle tactics and how they help construct an army. Now, what you're looking at right here, again, is a battle tactic from last GHB. Mm-hmm. This is an order battle tactic, Reclaim the Realms. And I ask, does this feel narrative? Now, the concept of reclaiming the realms is associated with Cities of Sigmar.
Yes.
They're going out. They're finding land that has been taken over largely by chaos, and they're colonizing it. They're colonizers. Okay.
Yes.
Building their settlements. Building their settlements. Yeah.
No, it's reclaiming, dude.
Reclaim.
Come on.
And I ask you,
I discovered this realm.
Does having a Free Guild Cavalier Marshal in the middle of a quarter of the board with nothing 6 inches from him feel narratively like you're reclaiming the realm? And have you built towards this as an order army? And I would say no. I don't think the battle tactics in the previous edition were particularly narrative. Why am I doing this? Why am I falling back to places and why? What is this? So I think that in our new version, we get a little bit of both. So let's talk about the hunt for Saddam's gold, which is also known as intercept and recover.
Yes.
Although I hope everybody out in the wild who watches our channel and takes this refers to it as the hunt for Saddam's gold.
Saddam's gold, yeah.
I'm not going to be happy, everybody. I talk about gifting. I talk about gifting memberships. I talk about we appreciate any kind of support we get, becoming a member yourself, subbing, liking. Really, what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that for the rest of the next year, we call Intercept and Recover the hunt for Saddam's gold. That's the goal. That's really, if you don't have the money to help that way, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, John. He's right. Okay. This is
John
what matters. All right. Now, the hunt for Saddam's gold for me, I think is pretty narrative. Now, there's a couple weird things about this. You're sort of imposing a narrative on your opponent's army. You're saying, hey, you're stealing stuff. And they're like, yeah, we are. You're right.
Yeah, I guess I can't say I'm not because fine.
Yeah. Hey, I have some narrative for you. Your army is stealing
a bunch of thieves,
and Alariel wants me to stop you. And meanwhile, you're Sylvaneth. You're like, wait, I'm Sylvaneth. What's happening?
Hold on.
Yeah, those Carnathi hunters. Yeah, they're stealing shit and taking it to KO to sell.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We should have more. We should be able to impose more narrative on our players.
Yeah. All narrative should be the narrative I tell you about your army.
Yeah. You're all making drugs in your house, so I've come to arrest you.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. I feel like that's not fair. You're all a bunch of Stormcast drug dealers, and I've come to shut down this operation.
My battle tactic says that your whole territory is actually a meth lab, and that's what that's what your Stormcast are doing right now. So yeah, I'm here to
I'm here to shut it down.
My Soulblight Gravelords are here to shut down this operation.
Yeah.
What?
Oh my god.
But
the Nighthaunt are the ATF, and we've come to confiscate your illegal weapons.
I would have paid ATF on the back of all my Nighthaunt now.
Oh my god.
Okay, intercept and recover is arguably one of the most straightforward. What I found in my research, my in-depth research through the 6 battle tactics, in how narrative are these versus how good are they, is that the 2 most narrative ones I found also to be the 2 best. And that is intercept and recover and scouting force. So intercept and recover, they give you a whole reason why this is happening here on the card. They literally tell you why. And they even have this thing where your rush to push the advantage in battle, i.e. double turn, gave time for them to even jettison some of this, right?
Yeah.
Hide it, jettison, come back for it later, whatever, right?
Flush it down the toilet, yeah.
Flush it. It won't go down. You got to pop the bag first. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I like this. This feels like you're giving a purpose. I'll tell you, I've put this and Scout, another reason Daughters of Cain are bonkers right now, on a Witch Elf Horde, and it feels super narrative. I mean, like, these ladies are rushing forward, checking out the land, and just murdering everything they can, which is something they want to do anyway. And, cool, while they're at it, giving Alariel her shit back. Feels super narrative in that context.
I had just mentioned heresy, like, basically having strict building, strict structures for building an army.
Yeah.
I think, if you look at things like scouting, it's basically a loose structure.
Right.
But, like, if you want to actually score points, you are going to build a thematic army.
Right.
Which I think is great. I think the new way that these battle tactics are both pitched, and the way you score them, and the way that they influence your army building is like one of the best fusions of narrative elements with balanced competitive play. I think it's amazing.
Exactly. This is why I wanted to go here, and it was a great segue, right? What Heresy does that's nice is it really spells it out for you. And
From the beginning,
it says you are a cavalry force. You are this. You are a standing guard, whatever it is. In Sigmar, between battle formations and between this, there are these 2 loose, subtle things that kind of tell you how you want to build your army, right? Yeah. Intercept and recover is last night I took Crew Boys. I actually probably will take these 2 for Crew Boys as well. Frankly, this makes me want to take 4, but honestly, I would take 6 if Andrew had them. Paint it 3-man units of Bolt Boys. They're while everyone else is kind of like going through and causing mayhem and pushing forward, these guys are like a layer back, looking around for who's got the treasure and opening fire on them when they find them. Super narrative, right? Like, oh, that's the treasure. If we get that, we can take that to the Sylvaneth and they'll pay us money for it, right? Because we don't care about the treasure. We just want whatever, money or whatever, and we're going to go ransom this to whoever, right? Right. Super narrative. It lets you kind of build that in your mind. I think scouting is the same. I have scouting here as well. But I also have attuned to the Gyran. Now, did you take this one?
This is what I took yesterday.
I don't see the narrativeness in this one.
Yeah, this is a little less so.
Yeah, I actually found most of the other 4 to be a little more stretches. So let's talk about this and why you might do it. I think, though, I think you actually, Saray, were the one who called out to me. It does sort of make sense, but what are you doing? You're going into the middle of the board.
Yeah, basically you're baiting and trapping someone, right? It's
Yeah.
the idea of like, oh, I'm here, and then you fade back into the forest and you get surrounded. That feels. I mean, it feels very elf to me. Feels very Cruel Boys, honestly.
Right. Yeah, when you actually look through it and you go through these 5, it's super interesting in this context actually because you're doing one thing the entire game. Move into the middle of the board, get assaulted, fall back, wipe everything out. That was there. That's literally what this is trying to do. The more I look at it, the more I kind of do buy into the narrative. But why is it called Attuned to Gairan?
Yeah, I mean, there's a small lore blurb there, but I guess, this is just the way we do things in Gairan. I don't know. That doesn't really make any sense to me.
Right.
Weirdly, what's funny is I think the army that's probably best at this is Iron Jaws.
Oh yeah.
Get in the center and then get into combat with Mighty Destroyers, fall back, charge with some other stuff. It's
the problem with
amazing.
Attuned to Gairan is this last one. This last one is insane, and I don't think matches the narrative of the first 2.
No, it doesn't to me.
So they wanted to because they say you're clearing out this area. You lure, like you said, it's a lure. Then you wipe everything out. But then, like, what about like 20 inches away, where that unit of your opponents is just doing a scout move? Like, that's not really what you were focusing on. You're kind of focusing on this ball in the middle. So I think it should probably, like, if they wanted to make this a little more balanced and narrative, they might change it to the one that's like more. This one already exists on another card. More units in neutral territory or whatever than your opponent.
Yeah, I think
having it clear is hard.
I think this one is the first 2 have a good synergy in both in terms of like gameplay and narrative elements, but the third is kind of a miss on both. It is not narrative and it's like kind of a very difficult task that I would say is basically impossible. I think something that would maybe make more sense would be no units wholly within 18 inches of the center of the board. Like, that's quite a big circle. That's quite a task.
It's more interesting now. It is a task, and that word is the perfect word for narrativeness because now it's a little submission. Send them in, clear, like draw them in, clear it out, keep it clear. That's what it says now, right? I like that. I think that we're looking through some of the other ones. I'm not sure how many of them are narrative. And I think if I would say one place where everyone is struggling, it's battle tactics. We're all still trying to learn and wrap our head around battle tactics.
Yeah. I see Saul saying he's not a fan of the new system, but skewed because of Sons of Behemoth. Yeah, Sons are gonna they're just unfortunately one of those armies that feels like they live on the periphery and aren't really considered for a lot of matched play.
Well, we talk about this. We talk about these
armies, right?
outliers. Right? KO is often one. I think KO and Nighthaunt often can you figure out a way that they work, but Sons of Behemoth are often challenging to make that happen with.
They're just not good.
Yeah.
Is there? Sorry, we're getting off track here. But like, is there a list that is Sons of Behemoth that is like heavy on little Gargants and then like Kragnos? I don't know. It's rough. They definitely hurt on because they're not going to be able to hide in the forest, so they're not really working with that either. They don't even have a wizard. They're really they need help.
They can
Sons of
kind of
Behemoth
have
need
a
help.
wizard. Yeah, I think it's an artifact. Yeah, Glowy Lantern, is that still a thing? I know Glowy Lantern is a thing. Does it just give it an eye? Saw? I'm not sure. That's our conversation on thus completes. But we do have one last thing before we go, which is a list. Speaking of Saul,
List review. Yeah.
yeah, Saul sent.
I think.
in,
Do you just want to give a? Do you just want to give a quick wrap up of what we thought for
Yes.
narrative stuff? I'll go first since I brought it up.
Go first.
Unannounced.
Yeah, unannounced wrap
I
up.
think that I think that with the current version of Scourge of Iran, I think it's found a nice balance between narrative elements.
Mm-hmm.
I think we keep saying narrative, but we really should be saying narrative elements.
Yeah, it's not pervasively
it's not,
narrative. It's not pervasively
Yeah.
narrative. It feels like
You're not
place
you're
of power.
not building a story.
Yeah.
You're not building a story game to game. There's not an overarching narrative. There's narrative elements that, they're flavorful rules that are impactful. I think they found a nice balance with it. Especially with the battle tactics. Maybe less so with some of the terrain rules. I feel like some of those could be applied to many other places. But it leaves me excited to see what they're willing to do in the future.
Yes.
Make it floating terrain. Moving terrain.
Moving terrain.
That's what I want to see.
I think that I agree with all that. I do think Matthew S. brings up a very good point. I think we're missing a battle tactic card for Monster Mash style armies like Sons of Behemoth. I'll be honest with you, I really am expecting the halfway point of this game to introduce either 2 or 3 or 4 new ones or swap out the current 6 for 6 more. Again, Matt Rose has shown that he's going to give us a whole new framework probably next year.
Yeah.
So, it's hard for me to imagine they just came up with 6 of these. But yeah, I agree. It would be cool to see one that starts off with something like, pick 3 of your monster units. These are blah, blah, blah. Pick 3 of your cavalry units. These are blah, 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 right? Pick 2 wizards, right? Or pick 2 priests. It'd be cool to see some that are you got to accomplish some of these with this priest or this wizard or whatever, or this monster or this cavalry unit, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Halfway through the last season, we saw an additional 3 honor guard rules. I wouldn't be surprised to see an additional 3 to 6 battle tactics getting thrown in somewhere around the halfway point.
I'm not sure I want
I don't want faction. I don't want faction specific ones either, but I think ones that cater to a specific type of list, like we see with Scouting Force.
Yeah. Okay, Saul's list. John Blake. List. If John Blake is still in chat, this is a Flesh Eater Courts list.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so I can't talk quite a bit about this because I play against this bull crap all the time. I would say, so he's got Usharan. I think, sadly, you still kind of need Usharan. This army,
he's very good.
Since basically Usharan has come out, I don't know that anyone's taking a list without Usharan. Of course, I know that they have, but okay, you got your 40 ghouls and you got your Morbeg Knights. You have 2 units of Morbeg Knights, a 3. I like this. John has been recently into MSU on Morbeg Knights, so kind of interesting. I will say, between the 2 MSU Morbeg Knights and the 2 MSU... Well, no, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it's okay. Okay. No, you're good, because you got the Rotary guys. One of the questions we're learning and asking ourselves in this new Scourge of Iran Saray is, do you still need hammers? And if so, how many hammers do you need?
Yeah.
He has 2.
I think that's just about what you want for... I think that's the optimal amount. That way you can cover more than one side of the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of... I don't know quite enough about Flesh Eater Courts to give anything very specific.
Right.
I think the Marrow Scroll Herald is an interesting choice. He's kind of a debuff piece. I'm trying to figure out what battle tactics you do with this in mind.
I think you can scout for sure. You've got the 2 Morbeg Knights. You've got Crypt Ghoul. You have 5 scouting units.
Yeah, I guess if you play for the late game, but I think you're kind of unfortunately like the crypticals don't last forever. I mean, obviously you have the reinforced ones, so they'll probably be fine. I guess you have the Royal Terrorgeist kind of scaring off other hammers as well.
Well, this is the scary part here, sorry. This is actually why
Yeah.
Flesh Eater Courts are really good, and every Flesh Eater Court's going to take Scout. Because when they die and come back, they come in off a board edge.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
And they come in half, and they still count as a Scout.
That's right. Okay.
So,
then, yeah, in that regard, Scout is quite good.
You're almost trying to get 20. You're almost begging your opponent to kill 20 ghouls.
Yeah.
Like in round 1 or 2, so that they can bring them back in 3 or 4 over by the thing and do the thing, right, for Scout.
Yeah. What do you think for a second battle tactic?
Maybe the one you took, maybe Attuned. This army also doesn't mind falling back. Morbeg Knights can fall back and act. So if they get into it, they can fall back and then still go be part of the game. Flesh Eater Courts are in a pretty good spot right now. I think you could do Intercept and Recover.
I think that'd be a little hard. With this list. You have, because Ushoran's not, I mean, Ushoran can be quite fast. Royal Terrorgeist can definitely go around and hunt down some units. But I think that's also assuming a lot that that your enemy is not going to have a hammer to smash your Terrorgeist.
The Terrorgeist is tough, but he is killable for sure.
Yeah.
I think you can do for sure Scout. I think Intercept and Recover is an option. I also think Attuned Gyran is an option. You can not get the 5th one, but the 3rd one, but nobody can. So
yeah, that's an impossible task.
Are you cool with 25 points on Battle Tactics? I think 25 points on Battle Tactics is pretty good.
Yeah, and you have enough bodies to play the primary game decently well on most maps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
You got
good list. Fun.
2 priests too, which is fun. 2 priests, 2 wizards. I like it.
And Marrow Scroll Herald doing some debuffing too is good.
Yeah. Okay. How we did it? We did things. It's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, Megan will be taking the Seraphon against Graham and the Gloomspite Kits. We got some new units, some Scourge Gyran units for the Gloomspite Kits we're excited for. Sunday there's a hobby stream. It's actually Megan and Saray on the hobby stream.
That's right. Fun. A rare Sunday hobby stream for me.
Yeah. I think that's it for now. I think we did it. Folks at home, thank you so much. As we like to say, be kind to each other, be kind to yourselves. Arby's. Bye.
Bye.